What is up, humans of the cardboard? Welcome back to Just Nuts, guys. Today, we're doing a full review of Burst of Destiny. I've already been walking around calling this the best set of the year. In fact, I think this might be the best core set we've gotten in multiple years. I know people bring up like Rise of Destiny and stuff, but I think Rise of Destiny specifically had extra hype, not only because it had some bomb cards in it, and it really did, but it felt like the set was pretty top heavy, and then after like the top, the rest was kind of like meh. And also it was like the sets weren't printed as much as normal, so it made everything feel more rare, more cool to have. But anyway, today we're talking about Burst of Destiny. This set looks incredible. We're only about a week and a half-ish away from it actually dropping the TCG, so we're going to be going through everything today that I think matters. We're going to be breaking down the brand new archetypes. There's 3 of those. We're going to be breaking down big patches of support, so different archetypes that got multiple cards of support, and I'm going to be showing small support and then finishing up with generic cards. Now, when I'm going over these sets, usually I come from the perspective of somebody that is somebody who does play the game competitively, so I'm focusing more on that, not quite as much on the collector side or the casual side, a little bit on the casual side, because obviously some of the support isn't always for meta relevant archetypes, but we'll touch on those as we go. Going to be ranking it 1 out of 10 by the end, so stay tuned for that. Let's just jump into this thing. Starting off here, let's get into the brand new archetypes. First up is Sword Soul. This archetype looks like it might make an immediate meta splash as soon as it drops. It's basically a very powerful mid-range deck that actually sets up some powerful board states just off of 1.5 to 2.5 cards in hand. It's really crazy what this deck can do with very small investment, and it's repeatable. So I really think that's where the deck comes in strong, and as long as its plays are resolving, it's really powerful. So we'll see. It's a worm archetype, very cool, focuses specifically on synchro plays, and yeah, so keep an eye out for it. Definitely has some meta potential here. Then the other meta potential deck here is Fluwandereeze, the other new archetype. This is a winged beast archetype. This deck does not special summon at all. We haven't seen like anything like that since like True Draco, it feels like. But the deck has some very powerful stun capabilities. It has ways to do normal summons and tribute summons on your opponent's turn for some very powerful tribute summon monsters. It can do stuff like pull Barrier Statue of the Stormwind straight out of the deck, and play some really cool stuff like Rise of the Mega Monarch as well. So keep an eye on that. Deck actually is pretty strong, but it does have some weaknesses as well. But I do think it could be a tier 1.5, tier 2 kind of deck, or like top rogue, like definitely a deck you need to know about because you'll probably see it every once in a while. So very cool, and I love the artwork on this one for sure. And the final new archetype here is Ice Jade. This one's very interesting. Unfortunately, I think this one doesn't really do much after this set. The next set does help it. But so far it seems just like generic water support. They're just like generic water extenders. They do, however, have a Rhoda, so that's definitely nice to have should they get other support that really rounds out the archetype fully there. But they're cool. They might be something to keep in mind if you are somebody who loves water archetypes, because they do help extend, and we'll just have to see if they really end up like connecting together with other water decks to make something viable. But for now, I think they're like okay, and it's only a couple cards. Which takes us to our big support chunks. Starting off here with Rockets. They get like 5 new cards here. There's like 2 traps. They don't really matter that much. They do get a ritual monster, and they get a main deck monster as well. I think the main deck monster is actually the best card here. It's an extender, which is actually pretty good. From hand, kind of works like a Crusadia. And then you have this guy. He's not a bad boss monster at all. I just don't know if that deck's really going to go in that direction of trying to like play the bricks to put up a ritual monster. It's cool. If you want to build around it, go ahead. I just don't think it's the most competitively viable way to adjust the deck. Next up here, we have Despia. Despia gets a good amount of solid support cards here. They get 2 new quick plays, they get a new fusion, and they get a new main deck monster. All pretty solid cards. This guy's kind of cool, kind of works like a Trickstar. While he's fusion summoned and on the field, your opponent has to pay 600 to activate any card and or effects, which is kind of crazy. So if they're not able to, if they're one of those decks that has to do a bunch of like little card effects just to get to where their strategy wants to go, you may end up like dinking them for a lot of damage before they even are able to amass anything onto the field. So definitely a card that's kind of funny. I don't know how truly good it is. I like that it comes back from the grave very easily, so that definitely could come up a little bit more, but interesting. And then they get a good extender from the main deck. They get 2 good new quick play spells as well. So look out for Despia. I've already seen them do some pretty cool stuff. We'll see how good they are after this set. Next up, we have Reptilian. This was not one we were expecting, but we've been getting a lot of reptile support as of lately, and I love it. Snake Rain is actually usable in 2021. Who would have thought? They get like 2 monsters, 2 spells, and this synchro. I think they're all pretty good as far as what you might have thought for Reptilian stuff. I'm honestly not sure at this point how well it works with the new Ogdoadic archetype, because that seems to be where a lot of people want to go with it. We'll see. I think like we just need to see if people mess around with it and if it can be like a cool rogue deck or something. But they definitely have some cool payoffs for sure. They still base around like making your opponent's stuff like 0 attack and then capitalizing on it. But I still think that can be pretty decent in 2021. So cool. Reptilian stuff. Next up, we have B Troopers. Oh, jeez. Apologies if you're a B Trooper player. The support stinks. Yeah. I mean, we got 7 cards of support. I think 4 of them are like legitimately unplayably horrible, and 3 of them are like, okay, they're all right. They're not horrible. They're not great. This is one of them. He's actually an okay extender. He shuffles back like 3 of your banished insects to the main deck specifically, so you cannot shuffle extra deck monsters, which does hurt for sure. But he's a big body. He's annoying to out, and so that's something. Yeah, there's like a new insect extender that banishes insects from grave to summon. He's okay as well. And then there's a spell that like generates a token for you and can potentially pop a back row. That is about it. There's really not much else going on in the archetype as far as the new cards go. So now we look towards Grand Creators and what the new Insector card will bring, because that'll determine whether or not B Troopers will take the next step of competitive viability. All right, next up, more of a casual one. We see Penguin support in here. 2 other cards are actually really good. They do get like a straight up Rhoda. They do get this guy, which does help pull some cards out of the deck for you. And then get 2 other ones. The 2 other ones are kind of mediocre, but I'm just happy we're getting new names. I think there's still 2 or 3 different Penguin monsters that we should be getting at some point, just based off of the artwork of the synchro we got a little while ago. Because 3 of these monsters are in that artwork, and there's still like 2 or 3 more that we have yet to get. So that would be really cool. I don't want to see them be good. I just want to see them do something, right? Like that would just be fun to like roll up to locals with penguins, right? Of all things. So I'll keep an eye on it. But penguins, really cool one. Next up, we have Gunkin, or Suship, whatever you want to call him. I honestly still don't know exactly what this deck wants to do. It obviously wants to like Exceed summon, do some cool plays like that. They get a good amount of cards. You think they get 2 Exceeds and 2 main deck monsters, maybe even a spell. I don't even know off the top of my head, but they get some more support. I never really followed this archetype too much, but if you're excited for that, obviously this is a nice little buff for that deck. And next up is Magic Key. This one I have been following. This deck legitimately gets like 3 of like the 5 best cards the deck has in the archetype now. This guy's one of them. If you can just make him, it's like 2 interruptions. It's like a spell and trap negate and a like Ghost Ogre but better kind of effect, which is really solid. And like that's obviously not all you're going for, but there's a really good main deck monster and there's another good Exceed as well for the archetype. Very cool. This is like the first set that I think that deck will be a playable rogue deck. I think it'll be on the realm of like Crusadia. That's what this kind of reminds me of, like Crusadia combo kind of strategy. We'll see where it goes. But I definitely want to play around with some of the combos because they do set up some pretty cool archetype-specific end boards, and that always makes combo decks a little more interesting to me. Not just making Appaloosa and Borreload Savage. You're actually making like your in-archetyped interruptions, and they're pretty good, so we'll take that. Already went over Beat Troopers, so I need to talk about that. And now we get to the small supports. So this is like 1 or 2 cards for archetypes, not like a whole wave. It's just like 1 or 2 little nifty cards. First up, we have Starry Knights. This card's actually really solid for them. They got CL in the last core set, and this card, Orbitail's, actually really solid for them. Now listen, they still probably stink, but you know, this helps. Ties of the Brethren plays become a lot more powerful with this card, and you know, we'll take it. We'll take anything we can get. Next up is Zorua, the Magistus Daimon. This card is huge for Magistus. I think Magistus can legitimately play. They have a win condition now. This card's kind of like the Buster Blader link. Like on summon, it equips itself with a Magistus extra deck monster, and he is just like skill drained for any monster type that's equipped to him. So you literally like via like basic combos can get like a Link, an Exceed off of 2 card combos, and like with more card combos you can get like 3 to 4 like all types: Fusion, Exceed, Link, Synchro, which means literally your opponent can activate the effects of any of those monsters. And sometimes they just can't out this card if that's the case. He also brings himself back pretty easily, which is pretty good. And yeah, definitely look out for him. I think Magistus can actually play here. Maybe this makes something like a Magistus Dogmatica list like viable. I don't know. Cool stuff though. Definitely keeping an eye on that. Next up, we got a new TCG exclusive Night Sword Serpent. This card is just a phenomenal card for Ogdo addicts. He just says generically, if he's sent to the grave by card effect, summon him, but banish him when he leaves the field. Now the perfect thing is he's level 4, which allows you to make a rank 4. He doesn't end up being banished when he leaves the field, and that's really solid. So he's just a good extender. He gives you another good target to be able to just send off of Snake Rain, send off of Water Lily, send off of the new continuous spell we're going to get in the next set that just says send a monster from hand to reborn something. And so this guy I think is actually a pretty good card for the deck, honestly. Straight up, pretty cool. Next up, this card is just Gemini support. I think it's just generic Gemini support. I don't even remember exactly what it does. I apologize for that if you're a Gemini player, but just check it out. All right, it's Gemini. Okay, you can't really complain. You're getting Gemini support, right? Machina. This card is kind of crazy. Long story short, just to throw this out there, he's a 4,600 body. I know you can't even see that here. He's 4,600, and you just have to like banish machine monsters from grave that like their levels total like 12 or higher. Not the craziest thing to do, especially in like Earth Machine decks. Very easy to put a lot of different levels in grave and make this guy droppable, and he's searchable, and 4,600. Potentially a one of in Earth Machine. Abyss Keeper, cool fish support card. He takes any 2 waters, and unfortunately he can't be used for link material the turn he's link summoned, but if he's link summoned, you can special summon a fish from hand, and he can target one other fish you control and a monster your opponent controls. Or I'm sorry, any card your opponent controls. Banish them both permanently. So decent removal effect. Unfortunately, I don't know if we have a fish archetype that really could take advantage of him right now, but I love that he can special any fish from hand. No restriction there, doesn't negate the card, doesn't have a level restriction, and so there's some cheeky stuff you can abuse with this card. Definitely keep it in mind. Then we have this guy. He's really cool. Pretty much what he says is if he's sent to grave by a monster effect, he'll special summon himself from grave. He's a plant support card. He's level 1. The plant deck has a ton of ways to just send stuff like this. This could actually be something pretty good. And Sunvine Sowing. This card is definitely a card I'm looking at here. I definitely want to try some plant decks because this card's crazy. It summons the vanilla straight out of the deck from the Sun Avalon deck. Which, if you don't know, that's like a 1-card combo straight up, and it's kind of crazy. So definitely another really cool card. This is just E-Telly for the deck, and gives you extra versatility too. You can search it super easily. Card's crazy. Signet Crosswipe. This card's essentially like a quick play. I don't even know what to call it. I guess it's, well, whatever. You tribute a Cybers to target a card on the field and destroy it. It's a quick play. It's nice utility. It's a Signet card, so it is searchable in the Code Talker deck. We'll take it. Then there's Ursa Arctic / Drytron support. This stuff is not playable for competitive builds, by the way. You have to fuse with like exactly Fafnir and with one of the Ursa Arctic monsters. It's really bad, but it's cheeky and funny and cool. So if you want to try and make it work with a weird like combination deck, that's fine. I like that their lore is like officially combined. That does make for some cool stuff. Unfortunately, I just don't think this card is like actually playable in any capacity in either of those decks, but it's funny. It's definitely cool. Evil Twins. Evil Twins get a new link 4 here. This is immensely important for them. They needed something like this. It's just a legit win condition, a legit offensive card for them. I love it. Destiny Hero Denier. Okay, so this card's very important. It allows heroes to actually recycle Malicious which is very good. It gives them a lot of extendability with this card. They have ways to send this straight from the deck. Not a problem there. Trust me, this card's really important for them. And then we finish up here with this card. Technically, it's like an Albaz support card or a Sword Soul support card. It can tribute itself as a quick effect to special summon any Sword Soul or exactly Fallen of Albaz straight from the deck. And if your opponent controls monsters and you don't, you can special summon it from your hand. So it's really good going second. It's a staple 3 of in Sword Soul. Helps with consistency, helps playing into boards going second. It also has other uses. So I threw it in the archetype list technically because it's going to be a high rarity card. It's going to be very sought after. So I figure I might as well give it its own little spot here. Then we move to the generic stuff. We do get a cool little ritual package. This card plus the new ritual spell for it. They kind of help you like search and set up a quick ritual summon on the opponent's turn, as well as like an impermanence effect like target a monster, negate its effects during the end of the turn. Pretty cool. Nothing too crazy, but I do appreciate it could actually be a playable package in certain ritual decks for sure. Apex Predation, cool TCG exclusive card. It kind of is like a Torrential Tribute Needle Sealing-esque card. As long as you control a normal summoned or set monster, you can destroy all special summoned monsters on the field, but it locks you out of normal summoning or setting on the next turn. Not a huge deal, but it is like kind of a cool trap card. Not bad. Definitely kind of interesting. Then we get to this card. This is like Supernatural Danger Zone. This card is kind of like a token support card. If you special summon a normal monster, you can target any card on the field and destroy it. It's continuous. If you can quick summon stuff on the opponent's turn, cool. You're getting free pops. Kind of a fun card. I don't know when it would actually be played, but it's a fun card for sure. And then Stained Glass of the Valiant. This card's also kind of cool. It says if you control a fairy, you can just like, what is that card called? Graceful Charity. Draw 3, put 2 back. If you control a fiend, your opponent can draw 1, then they randomly discard 1, and then they have to discard a second card. So technically it's a -1 for your opponent. I don't love that it lets them pick the second card and they draw, so they only lose 1 card instead of 2. I think they could have, I don't know, left that in there. But ideally, if you can set up a fairy and a fiend, this card does have some power to it for sure. So we'll see. Also, like, we have this monster. This is Loagith from the last set. I don't know where this guy's from, but he's pretty cool. And maybe we'll get him soon. This card, it's one of the Sword Soul cards, but it is generic support for worms. It's kind of like Icarus Attack. It targets a worm and 2 monsters your opponent, or 2 cards your opponent controls, destroys them both. It also has as the bonus of, if you can actually banish this card, you can summon a token to your field. Not half bad. Either could be something possible, even in decks outside of Sword Soul. Pretty cool. Then we get to the generic cards. Oh, we're in the generic cards, sorry. Yeah, Cupid Pitch. This card's kind of crazy. I believe all it says is that if it's used for a synchro summon, it lets you add any monster with exactly 600 attack or defense from deck to hand, I think. It's something like that. It's crazy. It searches like 100 different monsters in the game of Yu-Gi-Oh! You definitely need to look into this. This card could and probably will be relevant in some very powerful combos. I've already seen people saying that like this card makes Hauki Fibrax combos actually doable again in Yu-Gi-Oh! Like, and being solid, getting 2 to 3 interruptions off of them. So definitely keep an eye on this card for sure. I would pick it up if you can. There. Next up is Borrelcoat. This is the cover card for the set. If he's made with 3 different monsters, if he battles, he can just like wipe the entire board. He can also has a graveyard effect to banish himself to like, it's either pop or send any dark monster with 3,000 exact attack, or 3,000 or more attack on field, and then he summons a Topologic, or I think, is it Topologic or Boral monster from extra deck, which is cool. So he has some cool effects. He's definitely cool. He's generic Link 3. Definitely look into him. He's probably a card you want to have 1 of. And then we have Small World. This card's kind of crazy to explain. I'm going to try and keep it very simple. You know when you see somebody and you're like, and you talk to them, you've never met them before, and then you're like, and then you get to the point where they're like, oh, you know my brother lives right next to you, and you're like, oh, Small World. It's kind of like that, but for Yu-Gi-Oh! It lets you search stuff that has slight things in common with each other. It's kind of crazy. Look into it, do some research on it, but this is a crazy search card. King of the Sky Prison, otherwise now known as Lord of the Heavenly Prison. Okay. This card's crazy. It's a really good back row support card. It makes like your back row indestructible, and then if you activate a spell or trap, you can like summon him, then set any spell or trap from your deck, but obviously that requires you to be activating stuff on the opponent's turn. So still cool. And yeah, it's a really nice card for backrow decks. I'm going to be playing it in specific few decks, but you'll see that when it happens. All right. Destroy Phoenix Enforcer. I did not bring him up early as part of the hero support because I think this card's going to be abused more generically than it is even in heroes. Now, it's even better in heroes because you don't even have to play bricks. The bricks aren't even bricks for that deck. But a lot of decks are going to be playing this card generically. Pretty much what he says is if he's destroyed, he's going to come back on the standby phase, and he's a quick effect Dryad by popping himself and like something your opponent controls. Very strong. He also has an effect that like lowers all of your opponent's stats, all your opponent's monster stats based on the number of hero monsters in grave or something. So it's even harder to walk over him. Card's a problem. Card is a problem. Yep. And the last card I figure I might as well mention here is Elemental Hero Stratos. This is the Starlight Rare, or like the random just thrown in Starlight Rare for the set. Hero players will be clamoring for this, but outside of that, I don't know how many people will. But very cool one. We knew this one would come at some point, but yeah, we'll throw that in there. So that sums up everything we're looking at for Burst of Destiny. As far as the new archetypes go, 2 meta relevant ones out the gate. As far as support go, we've got multiple archetypes that become either playable in a rogue status or legit like tier 2 level of like goodness. And you can even argue like we're looking at heroes, we're looking at evil twins, we're looking at Magic-Key. Like a lot of these decks become like legitimately like playable in the metagame, and I cannot wait to see where we go. There's also stuff from Synchro Storm coming out, making Lyralus Pure a viable deck, so we'll see what happens there. Bird Up may be a thing again, I don't know. There's a lot going on. A lot is about to change very quickly, and I cannot wait for that. So overall, I'm giving this set... Man, I'm going to give this set an 8.5 out of 10. I think that's very high. I feel like a lot of sets usually sit in that 6 to 7 range, and an 8.5 is pretty damn good. I think if the imports and TCG exclusives were a little bit better, I mean, the Beat Trooper stuff, if the Beat Trooper stuff was good, this set would have been a 9 out of 10. I think so many people were banking on that, and the fact that it was kind of a flop definitely took the set down a little bit for me. But still, 8.5 is like really, really high for me generally, and I have kind of high standards for sets. So yeah, that's gonna do it for me here today, guys. Thank you so much for watching. As always, let me know in the comment section down below what you think this set is out of 10, and what are you most excited for to pull out of this set to start playing in your decks. I want to hear your thoughts down there. Thank you so much for watching. As always, though, I will see you in the next video. Peace.